Imagine a life built on what you believe to be true, a foundation of memories, relationships, and identity meticulously constructed over years. Now, picture that foundation beginning to crack, not from some external force, but from a subtle tremor within, a nagging feeling that something fundamental is off. We've all experienced moments of doubt, those fleeting instances where a memory feels slightly out of focus or a familiar face seems just a touch unfamiliar. But what if that sense of unease intensified, morphing into a chilling certainty that the very bedrock of your existence was a carefully crafted lie? This isn't a tale of fantastical creatures or otherworldly phenomena. This is a story rooted in the complexities of human relationships, the weight of unspoken secrets, and the devastating consequences of choices made long ago. It's a story that unfolds in the seemingly ordinary lives of people just like you and me, reminding us that the most unsettling mysteries often lie hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy. Our story begins with Eleanor. Eleanor, a woman in her late 40s, lived a life that many would describe as comfortable, perhaps even idyllic. She shared a beautiful Victorian home in a quiet, tree-lined suburb with her husband, Daniel, a kind and respected architect. Their children, 2 grown daughters, had recently left the nest, leaving Eleanor and Daniel to navigate the familiar yet slightly altered landscape of their empty house. They hosted Sunday dinners, took annual vacations to the coast, and enjoyed the quiet companionship that comes with years of shared experiences. To the outside world, they were the picture of a happy, stable couple. But beneath the surface, a subtle disquiet had begun to stir within Eleanor. It wasn't anything dramatic, no single earth-shattering event. Instead, it was a series of small, almost imperceptible inconsistencies that began to gnaw at the edges of her perception. A photograph from their early years that seemed just slightly wrong. A shared anecdote that Daniel recounted with a detail that didn't quite align with Eleanor's memory. A casual reference to a past event that Eleanor had no recollection of. Individually, these moments were fleeting and easily dismissed. Perhaps her memory was playing tricks on her. Perhaps Daniel had simply misspoken. We all have those moments, don't we? But as these inconsistencies accumulated, a knot of unease tightened in Eleanor's stomach. She found herself replaying conversations in her mind, scrutinizing old photographs, searching for some logical explanation for the growing sense that something wasn't right. Daniel, ever the steady and reliable partner, noticed Eleanor's increasing preoccupation. He attributed it to the emotional adjustment of their daughters leaving home, the natural anxieties that sometimes creep in as we navigate middle age. He was patient, reassuring, and offered his unwavering support. But his explanations, while well-intentioned, did little to quell Eleanor's growing disquiet. In fact, sometimes, the very sincerity of his reassurances only deepened her unease. It was as if he were trying too hard, anticipating her doubts before she even voiced them. One rainy afternoon, while sorting through a box of old family documents in the attic, Eleanor stumbled upon a small, leather-bound journal. It was her mother's, filled with elegant cursive script detailing her thoughts and experiences from her early adulthood. Eleanor had always meant to read it more thoroughly, but life had a way of pushing such things to the side. Now, seeking some distraction from her growing anxieties, she settled into a dusty armchair and began to read. Her mother's words painted a vivid picture of a young woman navigating the joys and challenges of life in a small town decades ago. There were stories of friendships, first loves, and the everyday occurrences that shape a life. As Eleanor turned the pages, a particular entry caught her eye. It spoke of a close friendship with another young woman, a bond so deep that they considered themselves almost sisters. This friend's name was Letitia. The name struck a chord within Eleanor, a faint echo from a distant memory she couldn't quite grasp. She continued reading, her heart beginning to pound as her mother described a tragic event that had befallen Letitia, a sudden illness that had claimed her life far too young. Eleanor felt a pang of sadness for this lost friend she had never known. But it was what came next that sent a chill down her spine. Her mother wrote of the profound grief she felt, a grief so overwhelming that she felt a part of herself had died with Letitia. And then these words, "I will never forget you, my dear friend." A part of you will always live on through me. In the name I will give my first daughter. Eleanor's breath hitched. Her own middle name was Letitia. She had always assumed it was a family name, perhaps her grandmother's. She had never questioned it. But now, her mother's words seemed to hang in the dusty air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Why had her mother never mentioned this close friend? Why had this significant connection been erased from family history? A seed of doubt, tiny yet potent, had been planted. Eleanor closed the journal, her hands trembling slightly. The small inconsistencies she had previously dismissed now seemed to coalesce, forming a larger, more disturbing picture. The photograph that felt wrong, the misremembered anecdotes, Daniel's overly eager reassurances. Could they all be connected? Could her very identity be intertwined with this long-forgotten friend of her mother's? That night, sleep eluded Eleanor. She lay in bed beside Daniel, his steady breathing a stark contrast to the turmoil within her. She looked at his familiar face in the dim light filtering through the curtains, a face she had loved and trusted for decades. But now, a flicker of uncertainty danced at the edges of her perception. Who was this man beside her? Really? And more importantly, who was she? The questions hung heavy in the silence, the beginning of a journey into a past shrouded in secrets, a journey that would ultimately lead her to confront a truth far more shocking than she could ever imagine. The comfortable life she knew was about to unravel, thread by agonizing thread, revealing a reality where her very name was a ghost, a lingering echo of a life that was not entirely her own. The discovery in her mother's journal acted as a catalyst, shattering the fragile peace Eleanor had unknowingly inhabited. The world around her, once familiar and comforting, now seemed to shimmer with an unsettling ambiguity. Every shared memory with Daniel, every family photograph, was now viewed through a different lens, tinged with suspicion and doubt. She found herself scrutinizing his every word, searching for hidden meanings, for the subtle tells that might betray a deeper deception. The change in Eleanor was not lost on Daniel. He noticed her increased distance, the way her gaze would sometimes linger on him with a questioning intensity. He gently inquired about her well-being, attributing her moodiness to stress and offering to plan a relaxing getaway. But Eleanor found herself pushing him away, unable to articulate the swirling vortex of questions and suspicions that consumed her. How could she explain that she felt like she was living a life built on a foundation of lies, a life where even her own name felt like a borrowed identity? Driven by an insatiable need for answers, Eleanor began to delve deeper into her mother's past. She spent hours in the attic, poring over old letters, photographs, and documents, searching for any mention of Letitia or any clue that might shed light on her mother's cryptic journal entry. It was like piecing together a fragmented puzzle, where most of the pieces were missing, and the few she had seemed to fit together in unsettling ways. She discovered a faded photograph of her mother as a young woman, standing arm in arm with another girl who bore a striking resemblance to Eleanor herself. The girl's radiant smile and the carefree look in her eyes were eerily familiar, a ghostly echo of Eleanor's own youthful features. On the back of the photograph, in her mother's familiar handwriting, was a single name, Letitia. The discovery sent a wave of dizziness through Eleanor. The resemblance was undeniable, almost uncanny. Could it be a coincidence? Or was there something more profound, something deeply unsettling at play? The weight of her mother's journal entry pressed down on her, the words resonating with a newfound and terrifying clarity. A part of you will always live on through me. In the name I will give my first daughter. Eleanor's mind raced, trying to reconcile this new information with the life she had always known. Her parents had always been loving and supportive. There had never been any hint of secrets or deception. But the evidence was mounting, pointing towards a truth that was both unbelievable and deeply disturbing. She decided to confide in her older sister, Carol, hoping that a familiar voice and perspective might offer some clarity. Carol listened patiently as Eleanor recounted her discovery, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and confusion. Initially, Carol was skeptical, suggesting that Eleanor might be reading too much into a sentimental journal entry and an old photograph. But as Eleanor described the uncanny resemblance between herself and the girl in the picture, a flicker of unease crossed Carol's face. Carol admitted that she had always felt a slight distance from their mother, a sense that there were parts of her life that remained shrouded in secrecy. She recalled a few instances where their mother had seemed unusually emotional when Eleanor's middle name was mentioned, moments that had seemed insignificant at the time but now took on a more ominous hue. Together, Eleanor and Carol began to piece together fragments of their family history, reaching out to distant relatives, sifting through old family records. They discovered that their mother had indeed grown up with a close friend named Letitia, who had tragically died young. But there was no mention of any formal adoption or any explanation for the striking resemblance between Eleanor and her mother's deceased friend. The more they delved into the past, the more questions arose, each one more unsettling than the last. It was as if they were peeling back the layers of an onion, each layer revealing a deeper, more painful truth. Eleanor began to experience vivid nightmares, fragmented images of unfamiliar faces, and whispered conversations that she couldn't quite decipher. She felt like an imposter in her own life, a stranger inhabiting a familiar landscape. The tension in her relationship with Daniel grew palpable. He sensed her withdrawal, her constant air of preoccupation, but every time he tried to reach out, she recoiled, unable to share the terrifying possibilities that haunted her waking hours. The secrets of the past were casting a long shadow over their present, threatening to shatter the carefully constructed edifice of their marriage. One evening, Eleanor stumbled upon a locked wooden box hidden in the back of her mother's closet. She had never seen it before, and her mother had always been fiercely private about her belongings. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Eleanor managed to pry open the box. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed letters and faded ribbons, was a small, antique silver locket. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside were two tiny photographs. One was of her mother as a young woman. The other was of the girl from the photograph, Letitia. But on the back of Letitia's photograph, along with her name and the date of her death, was a single, chilling inscription: "Our Eleanor." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The inscription was undeniable, a direct link between Letitia and herself. It was no longer a matter of mere resemblance or a sentimental middle name. It was a declaration, a secret whispered across time. Eleanor clutched the locket, her mind reeling with the implications. Had she been named after Letitia? Or was the connection far deeper, far more sinister? As she continued to explore the contents of the box, she found a series of letters exchanged between her mother and a woman she didn't recognize. The letters were filled with veiled language and cryptic references, hinting at a difficult decision and a shared secret. One phrase, repeated several times, stood out. It was the only way to ensure her happiness. Whose happiness? Eleanor wondered. And what difficult decision had been made? The pieces were beginning to fall into place, forming a picture that was both horrifying and heartbreaking. The uncanny resemblance, the significant middle name, the inscription on the photograph, the veiled language in the letters, all pointed towards a profound and deeply buried secret. Eleanor felt a cold dread wash over her as she began to suspect the unthinkable, that her real identity had been deliberately concealed, that the life she had known was a carefully orchestrated illusion. And the real Eleanor, her real name, might very well have been buried with someone else. The comfortable life she had taken for granted was dissolving before her eyes, replaced by a terrifying uncertainty and the chilling realization that the woman she believed to be her mother had been living a lie for decades. And the reasons for that lie, Eleanor knew, were likely to be far more devastating than she could ever imagine. Armed with the locket and the cryptic letters, Eleanor felt a desperate urgency to uncover the full truth. She confronted Daniel, the evidence laid bare before him. Initially, he was dismissive, suggesting it was all a misunderstanding, a daughter's overactive imagination fueled by grief for her deceased mother. But as Eleanor presented the photograph, the inscription, and the unsettling language in the letters, a flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. It wasn't denial, but something akin to resignation. Under Eleanor's persistent questioning, Daniel finally broke. The truth, when it came, was a torrent of long-buried secrets, a tragic tale of love, loss, and a desperate act of deception. Eleanor learned that her mother, Evelyn, and Letitia had been inseparable, their bond as close as sisters, just as the journal had described. What the journal hadn't revealed was the reason for their extraordinary closeness. They were in love. In the conservative social climate of the time, their relationship was not only forbidden but also dangerous. They kept their love a secret, sharing stolen moments and whispered promises of a future that society would never allow. Then tragedy struck. Letitia fell ill with a Bustrepagreserutia disease, and despite Evelyn's desperate efforts, she succumbed to it. Evelyn was devastated, her world shattered. Adding to the tragedy, Evelyn discovered she was pregnant with Letitia's child. In their secret world, they had dreamed of having a family together, and now, Evelyn was left alone, carrying the last vestige of their love in a world that would never understand. Fearful of the social stigma and the potential repercussions for her child, Evelyn made a desperate decision. She would raise Letitia's daughter as her own, giving her the middle name Letitia as a secret tribute. She moved away, started a new life, and never spoke of her past or her true relationship with Letitia. Daniel's role in this elaborate deception came later. He had met Evelyn years after Letitia's death. Evelyn, still carrying the weight of her secret, was drawn to Daniel's kindness and stability. They fell in love and married. Evelyn never explicitly told Daniel the full truth about Letitia and Eleanor's parentage, but over the years, he had pieced together fragments of the story, sensing the depth of Evelyn's past love and the true identity of her daughter. He had chosen to remain silent, honoring Evelyn's wishes and protecting the family they had built together. The revelation hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Her entire life, her sense of self, was built on a foundation of a love story she had never known, a secret her mother had carried to her grave. The woman she had called mother was indeed her biological mother, but the other half of her identity, the woman whose name she carried, was the woman Evelyn had loved. The photograph in the locket, with the inscription, "Our Eleanor," now held a profound and heartbreaking meaning. It was a testament to the shared love of two women, a love that had defied societal norms and ultimately shaped Eleanor's very existence. The initial shock gave way to a confusing mix of emotions. Grief for the mother she thought she knew, a profound sadness for Letitia, a woman she would never meet but whose essence was woven into her being, and a strange sense of displacement. Who was she, really? Was she Eleanor, the woman who had lived this life, or was she also Letitia's daughter, a living embodiment of a love story shrouded in secrecy and tragedy? The revelation also cast a new light on Eleanor's own life and relationships. She understood now why she had always felt a certain incompleteness, a sense that something was missing. It was the missing piece of her own origin story, the truth about her parentage and the extraordinary love that had brought her into the world. The climax of the story arrived when Eleanor discovered another hidden compartment in her mother's wooden box. Inside was a letter, addressed to Eleanor, to be opened only after Evelyn's death. With trembling hands, Eleanor unfolded the brittle paper and began to read. Her mother's words poured out, a heartfelt confession and explanation of her choices. Evelyn wrote of her deep and enduring love for Letitia, the devastating loss, and the overwhelming fear that had led her to conceal the truth. She expressed her profound love for Eleanor, explaining that every decision she had made was out of a desire to protect her and give her a good life. She revealed details of her relationship with Letitia, painting a vivid picture of their shared dreams and the joy they had found in each other's company. In the letter, Evelyn also entrusted Eleanor with a final request. She asked Eleanor to find Letitia's family, if possible, and to share their story. It was Evelyn's way of finally bringing their love into the light, of ensuring that Letitia's memory would live on. Enclosed with the letter was a photograph of Letitia's family and a few names and addresses that Evelyn had managed to keep. The letter was a poignant and emotionally charged farewell, offering Eleanor a sense of closure and a deeper understanding of her mother's motivations. It was a testament to the enduring power of love and the sacrifices people make for those they cherish. Eleanor, now armed with the full truth and her mother's final wishes, faced a new path. The comfortable life she had known had been irrevocably altered, replaced by a complex and deeply personal history. She had to come to terms with her dual identity, to honor the memory of Letitia, the woman whose name she carried, and to fulfill her mother's last request. The secrets had been revealed, the truth laid bare, but the journey of understanding and acceptance was just beginning. The carefully constructed facade of Eleanor's life had crumbled, revealing a more intricate and ultimately more meaningful reality rooted in a love story that defied convention and endured beyond the grave. The weight of the revelations settled upon Eleanor, not as a crushing burden, but as a profound understanding. The pieces of her life, once scattered and confusing, now began to coalesce into a coherent, albeit unexpected, whole. She shared the contents of her mother's letter and the full story with Carol, and, after some initial shock and processing, her sister embraced the truth with empathy and love. Their shared history now had a richer, more complex texture, woven with the threads of Evelyn and Letitia's extraordinary bond. Daniel, though his silence had been part of the deception, was filled with remorse and offered Eleanor his unwavering support as she navigated this new reality. Their marriage, tested by the weight of unspoken secrets, now had the potential to deepen through honesty and shared understanding. Following her mother's wishes, Eleanor embarked on a journey to find Letitia's family. The few names and addresses provided were decades old, leading to a series of leads and dead ends. It was a painstaking process, filled with moments of hope and disappointment. Finally, after months of searching, Eleanor managed to connect with a distant relative of Letitia's, an elderly woman who remembered Letitia and her family. The meeting was emotionally charged. Eleanor shared the story of Evelyn and Letitia's love, the tragic loss, and the secret they had carried for so many years. Letitia's relative, initially surprised, was deeply moved by the revelation. She shared stories of Letitia's life, her vibrant personality, and her dreams for the future, filling in the gaps of Eleanor's understanding of the woman whose name she bore. In honoring her mother's request, Eleanor felt a sense of peace and closure. She had brought Evelyn and Letitia's love story into the light, ensuring that Letitia's memory would live on through her family and through Eleanor herself. The name Letitia, once a source of mystery and unease, now held a profound significance, a symbol of enduring love and a vital part of Eleanor's identity. Life didn't suddenly become simple or without its complexities. Eleanor still had to reconcile the life she had lived with the truth of her origins. There were moments of sadness for the years lost to secrecy and moments of profound gratitude for the love that had ultimately defined her existence. She began to see her life through a new lens, appreciating the sacrifices her mother had made and the enduring power of a love that had transcended societal barriers and even death. The experience taught Eleanor a powerful lesson about the nature of identity and the enduring strength of the human heart. Our identities are not always neatly defined by bloodlines or legal documents. They are shaped by the love we receive, the secrets we carry, and the stories that define us. Eleanor's real name had indeed been buried with someone else, but in uncovering that truth, she had not lost herself. Instead, she had found a richer, more complex understanding of who she truly was, a living testament to a love story that time could not erase. The ending of Eleanor's story is not one of simple resolution, but of ongoing reflection and acceptance. She carries the legacy of Evelyn and Letitia within her, a secret no longer hidden but embraced as a fundamental part of her being. Their love story serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity and societal constraints, love can endure and shape lives in profound and unexpected ways. And sometimes, the most profound truths are found not in the obvious facts, but in the hidden corners of the heart and the whispered secrets of the past. If Eleanor's story has resonated with you, if you've ever felt the weight of family secrets or the mystery of your own identity, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that delve into the hidden complexities of human lives. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of the ordinary. What are your thoughts on Eleanor's journey? Share your comments below. We'd love to hear from you.